One. Hi, welcome back. Yes, I guess I'll introduce myself now. I am Gary Cox, and this is the Wellspring Christian Family Schools. And we've been doing these open houses for 5 years now, which we enjoy doing. We post it online, and other people are able to participate from a distance. So this last session, session 5, how can your church get involved? And the idea here is just to take a little bit of information and I guess you could say whet the general appetite. As Joel said, we primarily function as a home instruction oversight program. So we have affiliates. We've met the Westminster affiliate, Susie Davis. We have affiliate JIA Academy in South Korea, Homeschool Global in the Philippines, and then GHSA, Global Homeschool Academy, also in Korea. So we have those active programs, but there's such a need at this hour for churches to get involved, so we're going to just do what we can to get progress. So we'll push our way through this. So for the to start here, though, I want to just tell a brief story, tale of 3 missionaries. So once upon a time, there was a young man who wanted to serve the Lord, and a church sponsored him to the mission field in Frederick County. That young missionary happened to be myself and my wife, and our goal was to do a church plant. And in the process of working and planting in the church, the Lord also allowed me and had me continue to work in some Christian education as well. At one point in the process, the sending church suggested to me that I ought to get out of the Christian school as a teacher and find some more secular part-time job that I could interact with the community better. That's where the story of the car salesman came from, my one summer as a car salesman. But shortly, about 1.5, 2 years after that, a Christian school down in Gaithersburg called, and I asked the trustees or the church board, I said, here's a small call. It's I'm still going to be able to keep my secular work, but it's an opportunity. What do you think? And they said, well, go ahead and do it. And then I received a pink slip, and I was with the pink slip. There was a little notice: we're going to send our support to a more worthy missionary, and bye. So years later, I've discovered that the more worthy missionary was a young family in Haiti, and their mission work was founding and operating Christian schools. That's all they did. And I was astonished. They think they established like 35 Christian schools. So that was sort of remarkable to me, because I want you to get the point. The church did not consider it mission work to have a Christian school in America, but they fully thought it was a functioning part of mission work to have 35 Christian schools in Haiti. So locally, after we moved in the area, I met another local pastor and discovered that he spent most of his adult life as a missionary to Haiti. So it was a different denomination, and I asked him, well, what did you do in Haiti? He said, we operated 55 Christian schools in Haiti. So I'm like, really? That was your whole ministry was operating Christian schools? And he said, yeah, that was our ministry. So now I look him in the eye and I said, well, now that you're back in the States, they belong to a denomination. Tell me about your denomination. What does your denomination do for Christian education in the U.S.? He looked at me with a startled look and said, oh, no, we're not in competition with American public schools. No, we don't have any mission to Christian education in America. That's just for the mission field. So that's a personal anecdote, a personal story, but it underscores the reality that it is difficult for churches to envision what they might be able to do. As we go through this section, but we'll try to push through a couple ideas, and I want you to understand that I get it. I get it that there's all kinds of venues. And when my wife and I homeschooled, we homeschooled 1 year, or maybe it was at the end of our second year, I forget. I remember which living room it was. And we realized, well, we're not fully equipped to do everything for our kids. I mean, and we never imagined for a moment that we were ever trying to say by homeschooling that we're the end all, that we can do everything and we don't need anybody else. But what we were trying to say is, Lord, something of your created intention exists in the home. And we want to make the most of our home while we have that opportunity. And so I remember as we were discussing that prospect, we did two things, and this is really imperative for a foundational vision of education as a Christian ministry. First thing we did was we recognized the value of the home, and we recognized that that value wasn't necessarily something that we could fully understand. So I was in the Gospel of Luke, and I recognized that little section where when Jesus was 12, he went to the temple and he was sitting at the feet of the teachers in the temple and asking questions harder than the teachers had ever heard before. And, you know, his mom, he gets lost for 3 days. Actually, he wasn't lost, his parents were. And they come back, and the mom, a typical mom, she said, "Why did you do this to us?" Now, if her statement was accurate, that she was accusing Jesus of sin. Why did you do this to us? You shouldn't have done this. So anytime you shouldn't have done something, it's wrong, and if you're wrong, it's a sin. But Jesus never sinned. And Jesus just looked at his mother and said, "Don't you know, I must be about my Father's business." Now that's a huge statement, but the next statement of Scripture is more profound. And then Jesus went home, and he was subject to his parents. And he grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and in favor with man. And so I recognize that, you know, as Joel mentioned earlier, our primary theme that we have in terms of our philosophy is treasuring God's design for the family. The short reality is God designed the home as the first education center for children. And I, as a parent, and our ministry as a school, we desire parents to value their home to the degree that God values it. And you don't necessarily have to understand everything. My logic grid is something like this. Does my roof know how to function as a roof? Well, my roof is ignorant. My roof doesn't know anything. I don't have a smart roof, and I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to afford one. I've just got a dumb roof. But the designer of the dumb roof was pretty smart. And the designer is the one that instituted, and it does what it does because of what the designer did. So I'm wanting to underscore the significant reality at the foundation that as churches get involved in education, they're not going to have a very significant vision, properly speaking, if they think they're doing something instead of parents. But as we've been emphasizing here, we have a huge need to create a safe educational community for parents and for families so that the parents are honored and assisted and helped. Now on the screen we have John 5. This is one of my perennial favorite passages to just talk briefly about education and about the role of fatherhood, although it includes motherhood in the context. And so you're familiar with the account. There was this miracle that Jesus did on the Sabbath, and the Jews were upset because he broke the Sabbath. And so he says this in verse 17, My Father works and I work. My Father works and I work. And then verse 19 he says, my Father is working until now, and I am working. Truly, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father do. For whatever the Father does, the Son does likewise. And I want us to understand, when you get into philosophy of education, when you get into children's learning styles, there really are significant differences. My oldest son happened to be like kind of an academic natural. And once he got reading, like click, he just took off. And very academic minded, and we were able to approach a lot of the academic subjects with him in the more traditional academic fashion. My second son comes along, totally different. And we had to learn a different fashion. And this is the kind of fashion that we had to adopt and learn with our second-born. And that is, my second-born loved to see things work. How does it work? What makes it work that way? And a cute story of this difference, my son, the academician, my wife is teaching science, and my younger son was sitting on the floor behind mom because he was having a break while she's doing science with Dan, the oldest son. And, he's not getting the answers and he's struggling, and she says the question again. And my oldest son just looks at her, and the younger son, 4 years younger, behind her on the floor, gives the answer. My wife says, how do you know the answer? You can't even read. And he said, well, it has good pictures. The book has good pictures, and if you read pictures, you can read a lot. But the pictures were, it was an elementary science book, and it had good photos, and it was showing process. But we all can learn in different ways. Some people can't learn the theoretical way as well as others, but everybody can learn by doing. And Jesus is giving this illustration of a relationship. And notice the next verse as we go forward. I made one mistake. No, I didn't. So look at the next verse. The Father loves the Son and shows him all that he's doing. And greater works than these he will show him, so that you may marvel. And I think what's imperative for us to understand is that at the foundation of a really good, solid education, the foundation of that is a relationship with those who love you, and a relationship with those who love you in such a fashion that they're sharing with you their life. Now, as a young dad, I had a huge problem realizing, well, I'm not very smart and I don't have much to offer. And the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, it's not what you think you have to offer, just offer what you do have. Include your children in the world that you have, because that's the world you have to share. And that was really an important statement, and it's turned out to be prophetic for my family. So how can churches provide educationally safe communities? Edu-Safe communities. A local church can offer safe educational programs that reflect the demographics of the church body in the larger context of the community that they exist in. The need reflected in the church and in the community ought to be the catalyst for prayer and missional outreach. Listen carefully to the next paragraph. These programs can simply be week-long camps like Vacation Bible School, soccer or other sports-based clinics, specially themed academic events or music camps, or they can be substantial as education co-ops, private or group tutoring or homeschool oversight programs, or even a full-fledged private Christian school. Our affiliate program that we've developed, the HELP Heritage Education License Program, we've developed that to help churches get the structure in place to do what they can do. And in a new sense of vision, though, I really want us to recognize that it doesn't have to be just one thing to qualify. It ought to be something that's going on, and you have to pay attention. Joel and I had the privilege of attending a pastor's conference in May, and got to meet a lot of pastors from across the country. And we're very aware. Churches are busy. Very, very few churches have education programs. And when we talk to a pastor about a possibility of educational program in their church, they get this ice cold look of well, we can't do that. We don't have the resources. We don't have, and a lot of people would say, well, you don't understand. We don't have enough kids in our church. And so what I'm astounded by is the amazing amount of barricades that get immediately put up. And I realize pastors are very, very busy, but the purpose of our program is to help a pastor discover resources in his own church. He doesn't have to be the one to take care of it, but he can begin to get a vision. Personally speaking, I have been convicted in this process of study this year of realizing we really do have to be intentional about creating safe educational communities. And when I mentioned Vacation Bible School, I realize some of these kinds of things that have happened over the years, and they're a deep part of the Christian heritage. There's even Christian camps and those kind of things that are available. But what I'm trying to focus on in an understandable way is that a primary vision of the church needs to be to recognize that there has to be a safe place for kids to go to hear the truth. And we have to be intentionally imagining ways that we can do that and going in that direction. So as we continue on with the handout, a little bit more from this Edu-Safe booklet. The model of a Christian educational community, it would be a trusted, Christ-centered community with members walking in fellowship together. And that's the foundation, if it's at all possible. So when I talk to pastors and I talk to their particular situation, they say, well, there aren't very many families in our church with kids. And that's true. Up in the mountaintop here, that's very true. We're considered the old retirement center on top of the mountain. But the reality is, Jesus said this: the fields are white unto harvest. But you need to look and you need to see. Your eyes need to be open to what the ripe harvest field is and what's taking place. And so as we go forward as a community, if you have one need in your own family, I remember when we started our program, I just started the program for my family because we were going to have an educational program that was legal because that was our vision. We opened it up to other people when we realized, well, this is a good model and it can help other people. And as the Lord has opened the door so that we're helping churches do it, we really have that kind of a vision. But I want us to recognize from the outset that don't have a barrier stop you from exploring the process. If Jesus said, go make disciples of all nations, and if we're to receive children into that community, we need to be thoughtful because there isn't much of a safe place left for kids to go. So there's a couple points here that are understandable, but one of the reasons we're zeroing in on churches is that we feel like most churches today have a building. Not everybody does, but most churches have a building. And that building can be a community center by which you begin working out your particular program. And it doesn't have to be a full-fledged day school. And it may just be one homeschool family that you're wanting to work with. And as far as how we can work with a church, we can train that homeschool family initially in one of the enrollment years, and then transition and help them take some leadership. If you ask Susie, you would realize that it's a lot of commitment and a lot of work to go beyond serving your own family's needs. But a little bit of vision helps to collect the resources of families around you. But the most crucial aspect of an education program is anticipating the need to train parents. Parents are going to need some encouragement and instruction. They're going to need to have a vision for what they're doing so that they value themselves. As a brand new Christian homeschool family, my wife and I made the mistake the first year of running around this event and that activity, because we wanted to give our children balanced. And we thought, well, we're going to have all right, I'm done. Cancel. So we're starting to run around, and I looked at my wife because we were anticipating we might have a few more kids, and we did. We had 10 kids. And I said, you know what? If we allow our attitude to be out there is where education and life is, then we're just going to be a glorified bus driver. But instead, let's create a resource center here, and let's do our best here. Let's make the most of what we have, and then use that. And today, I can tell you stories, and I'm happy with that privilege the Lord gave us to follow that. So that ends this particular session. Thank you very much. We have question and answer sessions